Welcome to the Speak with People podcast, where we believe that healthy communication is the key to unlocking your leadership potential. We are the go-to resource for leaders looking to greatly improve their communication skills, whether it's one-on-one interactions, team settings, public speaking, or digital communication. By improving these skills, leaders can create stronger connections and drive positive change within their organizations. Each and every episode, we sit down with experts from various fields from around the world, just like you're grabbing a coffee with them, to dive into real, practical conversations. Our goal is to help you transform your communication skills so you can lead more effectively, build stronger relationships, and make a lasting impact. So go grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's learn together. Well, how do you lead your team with confidence when HR suddenly lands in your lap, and maybe sometimes you're not even sure where to start? Well, here's the thing. Today on the Speak with People podcast, by the way, where we believe communication can either break you or make you. So that's why we pour into communication with our leadership every single week. We want to dive into this idea. No one starts a business. No one runs a business thinking, I can't wait to handle payroll. I can't wait to handle compliance. I can't wait to have firing conversations. Or recently, my partner and we had lots of conversations with our accountant about our S Corp status and all the filings that have to happen and the 944s. But that's the reality of leadership. And when HR gets messy, your entire culture feels it. That's why today, beyond honored, we have an expert that we're interviewing. I'm thrilled to welcome Vicky Brown to the show. She's the founder of an incredible organization. She's the creator of the Leader's Journey Experience, has a #1 best-selling book, and believe it or not, she's a former opera singer. And we'll get to talk a little bit about that as well. But today she's given us a front row seat to the most important HR insights that we need to know, from avoiding hiring headaches, communicating through team moments. Can't wait to dive into all of this. Vicky Brown, welcome to the Speak with People podcast.
Oh, Jason, thank you so much for the warm welcome. I appreciate that. And I'm thrilled to be here today. I'm excited about our conversation.
This is great. So before we hop into the conversation, tell us a bit more about you, your story, who you are, where you're from, what you do, what's kind of got you to this place right now.
Sure. Well, I think I am one of maybe two native Californians in the world. So I'm born and raised in California. And my business is located in Southern California now. We're in West Hollywood. And, when I started the company, it was completely by accident. I mean, there's a whole backstory where I was working in corporate, in human resources, specifically in the entertainment side. So in HBO and things like that. And I ultimately moved to a financial technology services company. And that was in 99, 2000. It was, very early on. And
Yeah.
we got caught in the bubble, got caught in the tech bubble. And the president of that company, after we had to close it, said, you should think about having offering HR as a service. I haven't quite seen someone grow a department the way you have. And I think it would really be a great kind of service for other small businesses. And I was bowled over that he said that and really flattered and said, absolutely not. There's no way I'm opening my own company. What a great and poor idea. Um, I'm going to go get a job. And the reason was because in my career in human resources, I've always been number two. I'm a great number two. I sit on the shoulder of the CEO. I listen to, I'm kind of their HR priest. I hear their confessional. It's a safe space for them. And I'm the
Yep.
one who says, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And, kind of spurs their thinking. And that's a role that I've really cherished throughout my career. So when he said you should start your own company, I was like, no, I'm number two. I'm not number one. I don't know what you're talking about. I'll see you later. I'm going to get a job. And he then reached out a few months later. He had a new gig as the CEO of a new company. And he said, you taught me just enough about HR to know that I don't know anything about HR, but I should. So can you come on and help me? So did a few projects for him as an independent contractor. And he kept adding things to what I had to do. And finally, I was like, okay, here's the deal. I need a corporate veil. and you need insurance and I need insurance and we need contracts and all of that. And he kind of laughed and rubbed his little hands together and said, yeah, I was waiting when you'd figure that out. So he kind of pushed me into starting a company. And his business was our first client, and they were clients for over 10 years. And the lesson that I take away from all of that is that as leaders, it's so important for us to pay attention to the folks that we're working with, because we will probably see things in them that they will not see in themselves. I had no
Wow.
idea. I wasn't born, I didn't even have a lemonade stand. I didn't
Yeah.
when I was a kid. I wasn't thinking about being an entrepreneur. But I will tell you, it is one of the most fulfilling, terrifying, enjoyable, annoying, and outstanding things I've done with my life. So if I hadn't taken that one little road, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I credit him with that. I fault him with that, which I do on a regular basis. And but as a leader, it's just he saw something and he acted on it. And that's what's so important, because we have a better perspective on other people than they sometimes have on themselves.
Wow. It's funny. I run into people time to time because our whole company, Speak with People, is built on, hey, there's this incredible power that every leader has. And some of us use it in a positive way. Some of us use it in a really negative way. And some of us it's kind of unearthed and we have not learned how to communicate very effectively or in healthy ways. And it's interesting. Sometimes I run into people who are skeptical. It's just words. It's just communication. And I just shake my head every time. Just your story right there. I mean, the power of a teammate that speaks life into you sets your whole career on a whole different path. And you went, wait a minute, I can do this.
Exactly, exactly. And and here we are, and I'm afraid to say it out loud, but here we are next year, 25 years later. And
Wow.
it's crazy. And he knew that this was something that I could conquer. And so, and his confidence in me also allowed my confidence to grow. So, it's been quite a journey, and it really gives me an opportunity to I get to be number two now for all of my clients. It's great. It's what I was doing, only it's been formalized into kind of a product. So, as the
Wow.
head of my company, we handle HR administration and all of that. But the thing that kind of helps us stand out is we love consulting with C suite members, because generally, particularly in mid-sized and small-sized businesses, they don't have anybody to talk to. They
Mhm.
don't have a roadmap. If they're lucky, they've got a coach or they've got colleagues around them that are, traveling the entrepreneurial path. But most of the time, they've hung out their shingle. They're trying to figure out how to go it alone, and we can be there to to listen to the challenges they're facing, particularly as they start growing a team, and also to kind of help them through some of those solitary, you know really questioning moments that we all have as leaders in our organization. So it's a great ride.
Oh, I love that. What's really inspiring to me about your story is the fact that you got to a place where you understood, hey, this is how I'm wired. I'm gifted to be the number two. I'm gifted to, come alongside and help the vision come alive by making sure it has a strong foundation. It takes leaders a long time to come to that place of peace with how they're wired. Was there anything particularly for your journey that kind of helped you get to that place? To you had that piece of knowing where you were gifted and how you were gifted.
I think it was just in the years and years of doing, because even when I was on the corporate side of things and I was working, before I was kind of chief HR officer, when I was, a baby HR manager, um, working with my internal clients, heads of departments, things like that, it the part of that job that I loved so much. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a girl who loves compliance. I mean, I am an HR professional after all. So, give me a set of rules and I'm a happy camper. But the thing that really kind of spurred me on and made me happy was figuring out what that business leader, that department head was trying to accomplish, and then helping them get there. And Many times that had to do with kind of the nuts and bolts of dealing with their workforce, dealing with their team, but also many times it was just an exercise of listening to their ideas and listening to their vision and listening to their concerns and reflecting that back to them and helping them get to a better place and a better place of understanding. And that's the thing, to be a
Yeah.
solid, people say to me, how can I become a great leader? It starts with you. I mean, I hate to say it, but you got to look in the mirror, you got to look at yourself. You have to really have some understanding of what works for you, what doesn't work for you, how you approach people, where you could improve that. Continuous learning is a big deal to me. So, that's something that always has to happen. But as you grow, your ability to lead other people will grow. And so it always starts by looking in the mirror. So does
Wow.
entrepreneurship, quite frankly. Starts by looking in the mirror.
Wow. Wow. And that, I mean, that leads us to, you've often said HR is more than compliance, it's communication. And so, how important, is that communication then? I mean, you just kind of laid it out to what you were able to do, but, talk to us a little bit more about the communication side of HR and how important it is to lean into that.
Absolutely. Well, as I said, I'm a compliance girl, so give me a set of rules and I'm kind of a happy camper. But that's really not the foundation of human resources. That is why it's called human resources. It's really about dealing with other human beings. And so that is part and parcel of communication. I mean, they go hand in hand. And even if you have to roll out a policy or there's a change in employment law, and you have to roll that out to the employee base, it's how you do that. It's understanding how they take in information, how they hear information, and giving them that data, that information, that update in a way that they can hear it and that it has impact for them. And the same is true when we're talking to our clients. I mean, I tell my entrepreneurial friends that you have to remember that your employees, your team, is your internal client base. If it weren't
Mm.
for them, your business would not be around. So it's not just that they produce a product that you need to run your business and you pay them and that's the end of it. They are part of the spirit of your business. They are, people say, how can I get better culture? Well, you can create an environment where hopefully a good culture will grow and maintain itself. But the reality is the culture is walking in and out the door every day. It's how people are interacting with one another, how they're communicating with one another, how they're interacting with your clients. That is your reputation. That is your culture. So, you create fertile ground, but you're not going to be able to push and pull levers just to create culture. You've got to model it. It takes a long time. You have to continually kind of tinker and make sure you have the right people in the right seats and they're getting the right amount of development, both in their jobs and also as communicators for one another. So all of that is, it's a big ball of wax, basically.
Oof. Well, I loved how you started it with talking about, those teammates, those employees, or those internal clients. Eh, It seems like some companies make the switch, but some still operate under the I pay you to do a job. You'll do it how I want it done. You'll do it, and it's the leadership is led through, I would say maybe more the management is led through fear and force. And there's not that communication, back and forth. As you work with clients, as you look over the landscape with your unique, uh, position as an expert in HR, do you see the tide shifting, turning? Are there more leaders in C-suite positions who are, leading less out of fear and control and manipulation, and more into collaboration, seeing their teammates as internal clients? What do you think about that?
I think there certainly is a group of leaders that are thinking more collaboratively and more connected to their team and not looking at it from an org chart perspective. There are another group of leaders that um, And this doesn't have anything to do with age, it has to do with perspective. But because I'm a proud boomer, but there are, another group of leaders that they are leading the only way they know how. They're
Right.
leading the way they were led. They're just repeating the experience that they had, which was, very directive, very specific. And so that's what they're doing. And with a, healthy dose of fear mixed in there. And that's what they're doing. And then there's another group in the middle, and that's the group that I am particularly drawn to. And they have had the experience of having top down leadership in very directive environments, but they are shifting sometimes out of necessity, sometimes out of desire. But the workforce of today, it's a different environment. It just is. And the team members that you're bringing on today expect something different. They want the organization to have a core set of values by which you make decisions and you interact with one another. They want that to be reflected in not only how you behave with clients, but how you behave with them. They want you to be connected to the community somehow, and they want you to give them an opportunity to grow and show their special talents. And if you are being very directive and you just have people in a box and this is your job and that's all you're going to do, and they don't have a chance to cross train or have a creative day where they can think about a project that's outside of their sphere of influence, or shadow someone else in another department so they learn something more, or present to the team, or have ongoing education. If they're not doing that and they're talented, they're a top performer, you are going to lose them.
Mm.
It's not even that, oh, they might go. You're going to lose them. And I know that the marketplace changes, and sometimes there's lots of opportunity and sometimes there's less opportunity. But for high performers, there's always opportunity. So if you have a
Wow.
high performer and you try to put them in that square little box, and you're directive and you don't know how to delegate and you micromanage, and they can't do it, they can't offer any suggestions about how to accomplish the task because it's your way or the highway, that is not an environment where a high performer will thrive. And so
Mm.
that's not an environment where a high performer will stay.
Wow. Absolutely. Let me go back. You talked earlier about the continuous learning. How important it is, is it again, maybe both standpoints, talk to us from employees and then leadership. Employees, for them to continue to grow, they've got to buy into this continuous learning, have a development plan. But then, from the leadership standpoint, I know quite a few companies who maybe have not gotten to a place that has a plan yet to be able to, encourage, challenge, push them. How important is it for both sides to lean into that?
I think it's massively important. So, first of all, on the employee side or the team member side, certainly, again, for a high performer, they don't want to just be fantastic at what they're doing. They do want to do that, but that's not the end of the story. They want to grow, they want to have a trajectory. They want to know what's coming next. They want to know what the opportunity is. And, people laugh and say, oh, so and so's been with me for 6 months and now they want a promotion. The thing is, it's not so much, they may be asking you for a promotion, that's true. But, and maybe you're not promoting people in 6 months. Maybe you're not promoting people in a year. That's totally fine. Your environment may not be able to handle that. But what you can do is have a roadmap for them. And I suggest that this is what leaders do. You put together a roadmap of,
Mm.
this is what we expect at this particular job level. This is what we expect at the next job level. This is the connective tissue that we have in place to get you from A to B. And maybe they don't want to be promoted to team lead and then manager and then director. Some people don't. It's always surprising to me, but that's true. Some people simply don't. They want to be a great subject matter expert and stay exactly where they are. That doesn't mean that they can't grow. If they don't grow, they're going to get stifled and they're not going to give you their best. And so the thing that your team members contribute to your company that keep it vital and keeps the blood flowing in the organization, you won't get that because they
Mm.
will become stale and staid. They won't have any new ideas to bring to the table, and they'll get bored with what they're doing and they'll stop contributing at the level that you expect.
Mm.
On the flip side, I just don't know how you can be an effective leader without personal growth.
Mm.
Um, I will also say that, particularly for my fellow business owners and entrepreneurs, if your business isn't growing, then you're shrinking. And I'm not just talking about revenue, I'm talking about the vision of the business, how the business is impacting the wider world. If you're not moving forward, everything else is moving forward. So that means you're moving backward. And in order for the business to continue to grow and continue to be impactful in what it's doing, you have to grow as that business leader. Some of it
Mm.
has to do with leading your team. Some of it has to do with understanding how to help your business grow. Pardon me. There are all sorts of things that are involved, but if you just sit there and work with what you have known in the past, things are changing at the speed. We used to say the speed of light. They're changing faster than that now. And so if you're just sitting there using old tools, old ideas, old concepts, that doesn't work anymore. And
Mm.
I would argue that they never did. It's not that, it's AI against the world. It's like back in the day, and I really am going to date myself. It's what are these computer things and what do we do with that? So, if you can't move forward, I'm not saying you have to implement everything that comes down the pike every single day, but if you're not aware of what's out there, your competition is, and they're using it to eat your lunch. So, growth is
Wow.
important.
Yeah. Wow, absolutely. So, what do you think are some of the, especially for speak to our business owners, entrepreneurs who are leading, maybe smaller size companies, because I've asked some folks kind of in learning development uh, areas, is it larger companies that primarily do some learning development? Is it smaller? I kind of get answers, both and. But for people who are running kind of smaller to mid-sized companies, what are some areas that they need to make sure that they're giving their team some opportunities to grow in some of those kind of specific training areas that would be good for them?
Sure. Well, I wouldn't be worth my HR, you know, um, credentials if I didn't say the mandatory training, anti-harassment training, violence in the workplace, training, all of those things that are required. And so it is important as a business owner to be aware of what those are and make sure that they're happening on a regular basis, because this is my little HR pitch here, because those can get you in trouble if you're not doing them on a regular basis. And so many states, it's not just California now, but so many states have specific requirements. And so you need to be aware of what those are. So talk to your employment counsel, talk to your HR specialist, whatever it is, but make sure you're aware of what that is. And then when we were talking about developing high performers and maybe even, quote unquote, average performers,
Hmm.
but helping people grow, that is the beauty of what's happening these days. It's not just that you have, again, back in the day, you had to have or be affiliated with some huge learning management system that would, cost a fortune to implement in your organization. And so large companies did it, small companies didn't have a shot. There is so much available now, so much training available now. Some of it paid, honestly, some of it is free. And the kind of training that I'm talking about is, again, communication, critically important. Train your managers on how to coach and mentor their team members, because particularly if you're promoting from within, you have folks who are really good at building the widget, and now you've promoted them to manage people who build the widget. That is a different muscle set.
Mm.
Managing someone else and encouraging someone else and guiding someone else through the process of creating the widget requires a whole different set of skills. So we take people, we plop them in management roles because they're good at the quote unquote job itself. And then we just let them flail there because we don't internalize that we need to give them training, we need to give them support, we need to give them more education around that. And if you create a great manager, then your employees will feel like you've got a great company because that is the person they're interacting with all day, every day. You can have a fantastic quote unquote company and a lousy manager, and that employee will think the company is lousy. So it's important to get the management thing right. And it's not fair to promote someone probably because they were really good at the job, so they were a high performer. Put them in a role they're not prepared for. Don't give them any support. Don't give them any guidance. Don't give them any continuing education, and just be annoyed because they're not performing at the level that you need them to perform at. So again, that we have the option now. There are all sorts of education platforms. There are all sorts of courses that are available. I could go through a list, but they're ubiquitous. And ask. I call ChatGPT Kevin. I named him, but so ask Kevin. He will tell you what's available. But
Yep.
so things are available, but utilize them. Look and see where there might be gaps in your team and what they need to improve on, or what you think it would be beneficial for them to grow in, or revolutionary, ask them.
Yes. So let me go back because you just brought up kind of the thing that everyone's talking about. How is Kevin changing the HR world? How is he change? How is ChatGPT and AI? Is it? I mean, do you look forward and go, "Wow, this is going to be an incredible next 5 to however many years"? Is there moments where you're cringing, fear? What do you think as you kind of look forward?
Absolutely all of the above. I say please and thank you all the time. So by the time we get to the matrix, hopefully they'll remember that I was, pleasant. But so I love it. I'm terrified. I'm not going to be able to stop it. I'm utilizing it. And I think I think it's a tool. And I think that learning the tool and how to effectively use the tool is vitally important because, again, things are moving faster than the speed of light these days. However, it doesn't take the place of human to human interaction.
Mm,
So, having a chatbot respond to an employee that is reaching out to human resources because they have a concern or they have a question, I'm not a huge fan of that because it doesn't matter how lifelike or how um, sophisticated the chatbot might be. There are, there are just nuances that another human being can pick up on sometime
mhm.
that can be vital to that conversation. So there is a place for it. And again, I'm not operating in an environment where there are 20,000 employees. And so the call volume coming in every day is overwhelming and we need that level of support. But I will say that it's a wonderfully powerful tool to support the people who interact with the people on behalf of
Ooh.
HR. So have your HR, your HR professionals, have them work with the employees, have them answer the question, but have amazing technology. And that's kind of the way we run. We're so fortunate. We have amazing technology tools. I'm a little bit of a tech nerd too, but we have we have amazing technology tools that support our HR business partners, but they are the ones who are interacting with the clients. They are the ones who are talking to the employees, talking to the managers and the leaders of these organizations. Now, we work nationwide, so are we holding every labor law in the United States in our head? No, we're not. That's why we have great technology tools supporting us so we can get that kind of administrivia out of the way and be able to actually answer the question and deal with the people. So, and that's the way I think that those tools should be used. They're great at analysis. You can see trends. You can find out, maybe something's going on with your benefits because no one's signing up for your 401k, or only people of a certain age or in a certain geographic area are availing themselves of the HSA or something like that. So all of those analytical tools are incredibly valuable because you get great data from that. But acting on the data is, to my mind, the job of the humans.
Wow. Wow. I love that. I love that. Uh, for entrepreneurs, younger business owners, give us a couple of things that maybe are make or break that maybe slip through the cracks sometimes that we need to make sure. I know there's a fair amount. I'm in that boat. Young business owners. We've got a million things happening. We're trying to get the next client. Someone asked me the other day how it's going, and I'm like, it's great when I finally get the yes, and then it's a race to the next one, and then you're like, oh, that slipped through the crack, that slipped through the crack. What are some of those? Hey, don't let these slip through the crack type things.
Sure. Well, there are some greatest hits, obviously. One is, and this kind of depends on the state that you're in, but one is hiring people or bringing people on as independent contractors when they don't meet the independent contractor guidelines. And that varies. There are some federal, some national guidelines around independent contractors because it all has to do with payroll taxes. So the IRS has an opinion and the Department of Labor has an opinion. And, so lots of different agencies have their fingers and toes in the pie. However, your state probably also has some guidelines, and there are many, many states that do around independent contractor status. So you want to make sure you're not running afoul of that. It's easy to say, as someone says, oh, I don't need to be an employee. I don't want to be an employee. Just, I'll do this and you can just pay me every week as a contractor and I'll fill out a W-9 and we're good to go. The problem with that is that if they don't really qualify as an independent contractor and they get hurt or the assignment is done and they claim unemployment, and that's typically what happens. The assignment is done, they claim unemployment. The unemployment agency goes, we don't have any record of any unemployment being paid for you. Where were you working again? And then they want to look at all of the records of that employer.
Yep.
So, it's really important to get that right. The second greatest hit is hiring people as exempt level employees when they really should be non exempt. And those titles used to confuse even me as an HR person. But basically, the concept is as far as the US is concerned, everyone in the country that works is eligible for overtime, meaning they are not exempt from the overtime guidelines. So they're going to get overtime,
Mm,
except if they meet certain guidelines, meaning they are exempt from overtime. So that's what that means. So hiring people in as exempt because you're like, well, I'm going to pay you a salary. I'm not going to pay you hourly, so you're exempt. That is not the determining factor. And unfortunately, both with exempt versus non exempt, an independent contractor versus employee, those aren't choices that either you or the worker get to make. It's guided by the specific guidelines and the regulations. So they don't get to sign a piece of paper that says, okay, I agree to be an independent contractor or I agree to be exempt from overtime. They can't sign that away. So you have to be really specific around the status, the classification of the folks that are working for you. So that's really important. And then the third one, and I'm sorry to bring this up right now, particularly in this climate, but making sure that you've completed the appropriate documentation. And right now, I'm specifically talking about the I-9 documentation, which is the authorization to work in the US. That is something that has always been challenging because sometimes, people just forget to do it or it's not on their radar or whatever the case may be. It is very important that you are following those guidelines, particularly these days because the compliance audits have really, really stepped up. There are considerable fines for doing it wrong, and you just don't want to be in that position. So, there are some employment regulations that you really have to pay attention to, and it's challenging to do that because when you are trying to build your team, you're just trying to find great people and not have to read 5,000 resumes and not have to do 20 interviews and all of that. So
right.
you're moving as fast as you can, trying to get the talent in there so you can get the work done. But it's not helpful for you to overlook these pieces.
Those are incredible. So give us hope. I mean, you've been running a business for a long time, very successful. You know, how did you get through it? I know you probably had tough seasons that, maybe you wanted to throw in the towel, but I mean, a couple of decades. I mean, it's just amazing. So would love any hope, any wisdom, for people who are, just in that season now of dreaming of getting to that, 20-year,
Sure.
25-year mark.
Absolutely. Well, I'll say a couple things. First of all, yes, that want to throw in the towel thing that happens every couple days. So that's just going to happen. You know,
Wonderful. Okay. Not
different
alone.
day, different dragon, but still a dragon. So there you go. So that's going to happen. But the thing that I want to bring up for everyone is particularly in working with, first of all, you get better at it. You grow, you get better at running the business. Yes, you have a different dragon, but you're not dealing with the baby dragons anymore because you know how to conquer that. So now you've moved on to larger dragons. And you know what? You feel kind of better about it because you know you're already able to deal with the smaller ones. You know you're going to survive. You know you're going to make it through. So, but the other thing that is really special about having a team, there are those days, probably more than I'd care to admit. There are those days when I wake up in the morning and I think, I love my job. I love my job. I'm going to work. We're gonna solve that client problem that was hanging over my head yesterday. We're gonna deal with that invoice that came in that's 4 times larger than it's supposed to be. We're gonna, all of those things. And then I drag myself to work and I'm here and I experience the team working with one another and being collaborative and helping one another and solving a client problem, not having anything to do with me, not even talking to me. I just overhear these things.
Hmm.
That buzz, that hum, that dance that's happening with my team is the dance of Idomeneo being what Idomeneo was supposed to be, helping the client helping the client grow their business, be impactful with their teams, all of that, and particularly without me being in the mix. And that is so incredibly, the only word I have for it is energizing. It is the fuel that keeps me going, is watching them, my excellent team, do what they do. And they are creative, they bring new things to the table all the time, things I never even thought about. And so we get to be innovative and we get to grow and we get to stretch and we get to have adventures together. And that's the thing that I think sometimes we don't remember. That's a wonderful thing about human beings, actually, is that we can all be magic when we're together. So that kind of magic is amazing for me. So when you have a team, yes, grow them, develop them, communicate well with them, grow yourself so you're an inspiring leader, and what you get back will be 100 times what you put out.
Wow. Powerful. Powerful. Thank you. That's exactly what we needed. Hey, before I close with the conversation, we wrap it up. I want to ask you a couple of rapid fire questions. We're building this
Sure.
online library for communicators, get new ideas, be inspired. And so we ask all of our guests, is there a speaker that just wows you, fills your cup, you highly recommend?
Allison Maslin.
Hmm.
Allison Maslin runs an organization called Pinnacle Global Network. It's an entrepreneur coaching network. And I had the great joy of uh, being in that network for a few years. And she is, every once in a while, I run across some of her stuff on Facebook or on YouTube, and it reminds me how incredibly inspiring she is. She has a clear vision around helping entrepreneurs grow, but she really gets to the heart and soul of the beauty and the challenge of being an entrepreneur. So I love that. Um, and then I have the old favorites. I love Michelle Obama. I love Oprah the vast majority of the time. And so those are people who are inspiring to me.
I love that.
Um, yeah, I think that's my
Yeah.
list for right now.
Not everyone is a podcast listener, but is there a podcast, either guilty pleasure or development, that you just kind of keep coming back to, you highly recommend?
Um, I have to say, the podcast that I end up listening to a lot, and in answering this question, I'm surprising myself, is Amy Porterfield. I listen to her podcast a lot. Um, and I'm just realizing as I answer this question that I have an affinity for it. It's She's specifically talking about how to help you grow your email list and things of that nature, and so it's marketing focused, but she has some really great golden nuggets that she drops on occasion. So
That's great. And then lastly, you run into somebody, they're going to a desert island and they can only take one book. What's a book that you send them with?
So I'm going to say mine, but
I love it.
let's
That's great.
but I would probably say, the book that got me going because when I first started the business, like I said, had no idea what I was doing, didn't even think I was capable of doing it. So read voraciously. That's that continuous learning thing. And I read the E-Myth Revisited
Mm.
and loved it, loved it. And I would have to say that it's still one of the, there are a number of books that I've read since then that are vital to what we do, but and to my growth. But that was kind of the beginning.
I love it. I love it. Well, we'll make sure we post your book in our Facebook group, in our email, in the show notes from this. What's the best way where people can find you online, connect with your company, what you do?
Yeah, thank you. Well, we have a little gift for your listeners. We are HR, so we're going to give you some guidelines and a little workbook on what you need to think about for new hires and what you need to think about for terms and things like that. So,
Wonderful.
and also on the page with that gift is additional information about other resources that we have and how to get in touch. But I'm not going to force you to spell Idomeneo. You can actually reach me at vickybrownhr.com/podcast gift.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to make sure I get that down and that's ready to go. Vicky, this has been fantastic. I mean, thank you so much for just being so generous with your wisdom and walking us through. I mean, this is incredible. And I know we didn't get to talk about opera very much, but we'll have to do that on the next round.
Excellent. Jason, thank you so much. This has really been great fun.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Speak with People podcast. It means the world to us when you share this episode. Thanks for liking, subscribing, or following the podcast. That really does help the podcast get into more ears and into more leaders listening. Also, don't forget, we have 2 exciting resources for you. The first is go to Facebook and join the speakers group. This is a community designed for leaders who want to grow their communication skills. Also, go to speakwithpeople.com/skills library to access the communication skills library. It is an online resource chock filled with resources that will inspire you and transform you and grow your communication skills. Thanks again for being a part of the listening community. We cannot wait for the next episode.